Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in to the second episode of the War Stories. And also thanks a lot to everyone who watched the first episode and to everyone who commented. And honestly, I was a bit surprised to see lots of positive feedback. I wasn't too sure if people really want to hear these old memories, stories. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about a female perspective. As I said in the previous video, I worked a lot with elderly people more than 20 years ago. And there was one lady I remember very well. And I'm not sure if the stories that I'm going to tell are all from the same women or if it was different persons, but in the end it doesn't matter. Anyhow, we had this old lady who had wonderful grey hair and she had painted on eyebrows, which back then was very unusual and surely not the norm. And I don't think that it was that big trend it became later back then. And I thought she just takes care of herself and just wants to retain her beauty. But it turned out there was a more serious story behind it. As during the Second World War, she survived a bombing run and the building above her collapsed and she was trapped in the cellar, buried under the rubble. And it took several hours to dig her out, and after that event, all her body hair fell out and it never grew back again. Also quite interesting what the human body is capable of and what can happen to the human body, that mental trauma causes all body hair to be gone. And it wasn't burnt off. It really was a mental thing. And I think it was the same lady who told me her older sister and the older girls were conscripted as auxiliaries for the anti-aircraft guns in the area, as it was an industrial area with lots of high-value targets for the Allied Air Force. There was lots of anti-aircraft cannons stationed around here, and as they were running out of manpower, they also recruited females and young boys. And I don't know if they were drafted or if they volunteered, but she was super jealous that she was too young to join those forces. And she was especially jealous of these, as quote, nice, beautiful uniforms these young ladies got, and she wanted to have such a uniform too. And just a few days later, as she was going to school on the main road, she passed by what remained of these young ladies as they came under attack of fighter bombers who did strafe the column with the board cannons. And she said of these girls, just bits and pieces of the bodies and the uniforms just remained and were scattered all over the place. I guess at that moment she was healed of uniforms and the idea of joining the armed forces. And the third story from this region here, as she was a young girl, her mother told her that it's strictly forbidden for a female or especially a young girl to enter a tavern or an inn at any cost, as this is sinful and people shouldn't go there, and especially not females or young girls. And her mother insisted on that. And she was going with another relative holding her hand when the air sirens went off. And everyone in this village was looking for cover, and most people were heading towards the local inn, as it was known that they have a deep cellar, and they took shelter there. But she remembered the words of her mother that she's not allowed to enter any tavern or inn at any cost. So she pulled her head out and ran in the other direction. And after the air raid, she came back and found that the whole tavern and the cellar were gone. A bomb directly hit the building and killing everyone inside. So her mother's strict morals saved her life. Yeah, and those fighter bombers and strafing runs are remembered by a lot of people. When I was talking to my aunt for the last time before she passed away, she was already suffering from dementia, but still she remembered. Still she had, I'm sorry, still she had memories from her childhood. And they were living on the countryside, and when they were walking to school, which was quite a march, I think they had to go for an hour to reach the school, because there was no public transport back then. They often heard and saw the fighter bombers cruising above them. And when the sound of the engine switched, or when they saw that the fighter planes were coming down, they were instructed to head to the nearest forest or take cover wherever possible, as these fighter bombers really were attacking lone people and everything that moved on the ground and strafing them with the onboard cannons and machine guns. Yeah, as I told you, these are not fully fledged out war stories, but rather snippets of memories by people that I still remember. So that's it for now. Make of these stories what you will. Just war is never pretty, and war is never... There is no clean war. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time. Peace.